The Futato exercises from this isn't last week. Obviously, we had the midterm last week, but because I wasn't able to do a video conference last week, I'm going to look at the Futato exercises from from unit 7. So that's lesson 9 here. And so we'll go through here. This was on the prepositions and Vav conjunction, I believe. So take a look here at A, and we're just going to translate through here. And honestly, I probably won't translate through these because you've got the translations. If you have any questions or anything, or if anything's confusing, let me know. But maybe I'll just explain kind of what's going on with the prepositions. So here you see L used as a makef, where it's basically just connected. Batoch being used as an inseparable as a independent preposition. There's no makef; it's not inseparable where it's connected. Al here has a makef. Lifnei does not. This is a independent preposition. Tachat is independent. Im is independent. But down here we can see here we've got the kaf inseparable preposition with mizbeach. Okay, so the difference here between 7 and 8 is the difference of the definite article. Remember, the definite article, that hey, it's pretty weak, and so when it gets squished by a preposition, when it gets squished between the preposition and the root, the preposition just stomps on it. It just kind of covers it up, and you can still see the vowel of that hey, the definite article. You can still see the dogish forte there, but the hey itself kind of gets replaced by the preposition. So when you're trying to determine whether or not a noun with an inseparable preposition is definite, what you need to be paying to are the vowel of the preposition, in this case patach, and the dogish that you might expect to find in the next root letter. As we go through, you'll see that difference here. The lamed preposition has a shavah, so there's no definite article. The lamed preposition here has a patach and a definite article, or I'm sorry, a dogish, and so the definite article there is present but hidden, and that's the difference. Now we're going to get some, like down here in 15, me'ir. Here, because the ayin can't take the definite article, you won't find the definite article there. And so what has happened is the hirik, oh, you know what? This is even trickier because this actually isn't, still here, this isn't definite. Min does something a little bit different altogether. What's happened here is in min, usually because min, that noon is closing a syllable. When noon closes a syllable, it usually assimilates into the very next letter. Well, that's what's going on here. It can't assimilate into ayin, and so in order to compensate, the hirik of min has lengthened to a sere. And so you might ask, well, so how do you know when the definite article's there? If it's lengthened and there's no article already, or there's no dogish already, how can you tell? Well, I believe every time min prefixes a definite noun, it's going to be one of these makef forms. So you'll actually have min out here, and then you'll have ha, whatever the word is. So that whenever you see min on a word like this, inseparably, you can go ahead and assume that that is indefinite. But yeah, the rest of these here, here's the example that I was looking for, is the difference between 17 and 18. So 17 and 18, it's a little more subtle. There's no dogish that jumps out at you, but you can still see the difference. The kametz indicates that there was a hey definite article, and that the patach had lengthened to a kametz to compensate for the loss of the dogish. But again, the hey kind of gets stomped on, it gets covered over by the preposition there. All right. So that should be relatively straightforward, but you do got to pay attention to the vowels in this situation. How's it going, Ryan? By the way, I got your email, and I'm gonna after I'm done with this, I'm gonna be going back through the um, midterms, just checking everything because one thing I also, if I can get through the Futato exercises in a timely manner, I'll just go ahead and lump a midterm review into this same session here, so we'll do it all together. But um, if you have any questions or anything, like I say, stop me anytime, or if there's anything that you want to discuss first, we can jump into that. Otherwise, I'm going to try to work through Futato here. So, another thing I want to kind of point out here is the way that this assimilation thing works. We actually have assimilation in English as well, and it happens with the letter N, just like it happens in Hebrew with noon. And so, what you get is let me find, I guess, the min situation here. So here we've got mimizbeach. So that noon of the min has assimilated into the next letter. Well, this happens in English in the prefix in. So we think about incapable or indirect or inability, how we negate a word by using this prefix in. But this in, the letter in the prefix in, also assimilates in English, especially in front of liquids and nasals. Liquids are basically sounds that you can make that go on forever that are vocalized. So, o, wa, war, roar, these are all liquids. Nasals are sounds that are made through the nasal passage. So, and so the M and the N. So what happens is we take a word like illegal. We don't say illegal. We've got that liquid there. The the noon. The N actually assimilates into the L, and you can see how it's kind of like a doubling of that L. Illegal. So it's very similar to what happens in Hebrew here. Same thing for immeasurable. We don't say immeasurable, we say immeasurable. We don't say irregular, we say irregular. And so even in English, the letter N will assimilate into other sounds similar to how it does in Hebrew. So I just wanted to point that out to you. That kind of was helpful for me in understanding what's going on with assimilation, to see that something similar happens in English as well. All right, so looking at section B here in Futato, we'll just kind of look at the different forms that the Vav is taking throughout here. So you can see these first four, each of these, it's just a Vav Shavah all the way through. And that's exactly normal, okay? But you get to number 5, and all of a sudden, when the Vav conjunction appears before a bait, a mem, or a pei, it's actually going to shift from Vav Shavah to a Shurik. And this is the one exception that we have in Hebrew to the rule that every syllable has to start with a consonant. Because obviously, uvayet, this starts with oo, it starts with a vowel sound. So this is the one exception to that rule. And the Shurik here is its own syllable, so it doesn't contain a consonant at all. So syllable 1 is oo, syllable 2 is vayet. So that's something to be aware of there. But you can remember this shift from Vav Shavah to Shurik with what we call the bump rule. I think Futato discusses this in the chapter. And bump rule is a good way to remember it. You just, take the U and bump, bring it over here. Anytime you have a Vav before bait, mem, or pei, it's going to turn into an oo sound. So it's going to turn into that Shurik. So uvayet. And it's not just the buh, but even in the aspirated form, the fricative form, that soft, non-doggish form, buh and v, and then pei and fe, p and f. So all of those are going to be preceded by the Shurik when you have the Vav conjunction. So uvait, umelech, uvat, And then here we get another feature of the Vav conjunction. We covered in the chapter that when the Vav conjunction goes before a letter that has a Hatef vowel, so whether it's Hatef Patach, Hatef Segel, or Hatef Kametz, the Vav is going to take the corresponding short vowel. So here for Hatef Patach, the Vav takes a Patach. If this were Hatef Segel, the Vav would take a Segel, and if this were Hatef Kametz, the Vav would take a Kametz Hatuf. All right, so we'll move on now to C. Let me make sure that's the next section here. C, then G. So let's just work through, let me see what G is. Yeah, these are pretty short, so I'll just work through all of these, and then I'll take the longest translation from G, unless, Ryan, you have another one you want me to look at. So just going through here. Again, you've got the translations. I'm just going to kind of point out things that I want you to draw your attention to. So here, al is attached to haderek through the makef. Doesn't change the meaning at all, whether it's makef or it's independent. It's just different prepositions have different preferences at different times. Remember, Hebrew and most ancient languages, I mean, even English up until, the 20th century, really, most writing was not standardized. There wasn't a lot of rules for how to write. People wrote the way that they spoke, and a lot of different people spoke a lot of different ways. And since you can write the same, you listen to a sentence, you might write that a few different ways with punctuation and all of that stuff. People wrote differently. It wasn't standardized. So there may be times where you have al haderech with the makef, and there may be times that you have it without the makef. And there may be no explanation for why one case has it and one case doesn't. It's not standardized. There aren't rules that they're following. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as we go through here as well. But we've got al haderech, and so you'll notice when we have a makef, the definite article just appears as normal. It doesn't interact with the preposition at all. Same thing when it's independent, they won't interact. But then in the second section here, we've got the L. So here we've got the Vav conjunction in its normal form. It doesn't interact with L at all. And then L, being makef, has ha'ir as its object. So we have upon the path or the road and into the city. Now, you can translate both of those differently. He has on the road and to the city. Either way, no problem. Onto the path and toward the city, into the city. Good enough. Next one, we've got im ha-navi. Im ha-navi. Im here is with. It's another form of with. Actually, this might be the only form of with that we've had so far. There are a couple different ways to say with in Hebrew, but im hanavi, so with the prophet. Velifnei, again, just your standard Vav conjunction, and before and in front of, in the presence of, Hamelech, the king. Batoch, that's going to be in the midst of or within. Sometimes you might translate it inside of, but there are other ways to say that. So batoch, if you can just associate that with within, you're going to be good. Batoch ha-malchuth. Ha-malchuth is kingdom. So within the kingdom and for the king or to the king. Again, we have the king because we've got the patach and the dagesh here. Number 4, we have me'ir. This is the min preposition, but remember, when noon closes a syllable, as it does in min, and it's immediately followed by another consonant, it will try to assimilate. But ayin can't take a dagesh, and so what happens is the noon drops out, and the hirik of men lengthens to the sere vowel. So me'ir is from a city, uvayit, and a house. Next one, we've got Bevain u Vavat. So Bevain is just going to be in or with or at a son, and in or at or with a daughter. And you can, since you don't have context here, you can kind of translate it however you like. But whichever one you choose, if you do have context, you need to let the context, you need to be able to explain your choice from the context, I should say. All right, so next one we've got, and these are very similar, but pay attention to the differences here. Instead of, up here we had Bavain, here we have Babain. And so here we go from Shava to Patach, we go from no Dagesh to Dagesh, and so that indicates that this one has the definite article. So instead of with a son, it's with the son. And instead of u vavat, we have u vabat. So that Dagesh and Patach are going to indicate that bot is also definite. Instead of with a son and with a daughter, we have with the son and with the daughter. And then down here, number 7, we have La Adam. All right, so let's look at La Adam here. It's not Lamed Shava, it's Lamed Kametz. Well, why would we have a Kametz here? Well, if we take off the Lamed and we put a Hey in there for the definite article, we see that we have the Kametz because Aleph doesn't take a Dagesh, which the definite article wants to put here. And so the Patach of the definite article is going to lengthen to Kametz. And then that Lamed comes in, stands on top of the Hey, takes its place. That's why we get for the man or to the man. The La'el, and for or to the God. Again, it's important to add the God on there because that Patach, or sorry, that Kametz here under Lamed indicates the definite article was there. And then finally, number 8, we have K'ish. So this is just your standard Kaf preposition with Shava, K'ish. This is like a man. Ve Ka'isha. Ve, just your normal ve, this is an, but now we have Ka'isha. So it's not just like a man and like a woman. Ka'isha has this kametz here, which is a lengthened patak because the aleph couldn't take the dagesh of the article, but we have the article. So, like a man and like the woman. All right, and then G, we'll pick 7 here. It's the longest. Again, when I come to a sentence in Hebrew, I'm going to expect, now it may not always be the case, but I'm going to expect the first word to be the main verb. And so as I look at this, I'm going to look at it as if I'm expecting a verb. And when I see a shurik at the end of a word, that's a good indication that I have a verb with a shurik suffix. So if I take that off, I'm left with shin, mem, resh, which is the root of the verb that I know, shamar. Shamar is to keep or to watch or to guard. The shurik indicates that it's Cal Perfect 3CP. So this would be they guarded. And then usually after my after my main verb, if I have an explicit subject, like I'm going to say who it was who was guarding rather than just they, that's going to come next. I have ha'av. Now ha'av is singular. So ha'av can't be the subject of shamar, or rather, it can't be the subject of shamaru, but ha'av ve ha'aim, that's plural. The father and the mother. That's 2 people, and so that can be the subject of shamaru. So here I have the father and the mother, guarded, watched, kept. What did they guard? What did they watch? Et here tells me it's the definite direct object of shamaru. They watched Habain, the son, Ve'et, and also they watched the daughter. So I have the father and the mother watched the son and the daughter upon, al is upon haderech, upon the road, upon the path. He translates it as journey. Good enough. All right. So that's your translation there. I think that's it for the Futato exercises. G, yeah. Ryan, do you have any questions you want to go over? Let me see here. Shouldn't it be a hey for the definite article and not a lamed? Yep. Which one was I looking at there? I'm not sure if I explained it or not as I was going through, but let's go back to it. Probably one of these.
Yeah, it was one of those, I thought.
Okay, so in here, if we're talking about like number 7, for example, what happens with the preposition is as you're sort of building out a word, you've got the word, and then if you want to put a definite article, a preposition, and a conjunction on that word, like and, you're going to follow that order. So the first thing you're going to attach to the noun is the definite article if it needs one. Then you're going to attach the preposition if it needs one, and that preposition is going to cover up the hey of the definite article. And you can think of hey as a really weak letter. It doesn't like the pressure, so it gets squished between the lamed and the aleph, and it doesn't like that, so it either runs away or maybe the lamed stomps on it or something like that, but it leaves the vowel here. That's what happens with the definite article when it comes to prepositions. And then if you want to add a conjunction, then you would add it, in front of the preposition as well. So that's why the indication here of the definite article is not the lamed. The indication of the definite article is the kametz. And if you're thinking, well, why is kametz the indication of the definite article? Why isn't it patach? The reason for that is because if the lamed wasn't here, we would have hey, patach, dagesh, except aleph can't take a dagesh. And so since aleph can't take a dagesh, the dagesh drops off. And to compensate for losing that dagesh, the patach is going to lengthen to a kametz. And so now when the lamed preposition comes along, it just jumps on top of the hey, and it just uses the hey's vowel. It doesn't need to bring its own shavah. It's got a vowel from the hey, so it's just going to use the vowel that the hey left behind. And in this case, it left behind a kametz because the definite article lengthens its patach to a kametz when the dagesh is unable to go inside of the aleph. Does that explain the question that you had there, or okay? Any others? Anything else to cover? Otherwise, I'll just jump into the midterm. We'll kind of go through, what the different, why the answers were what they were, I guess, is what I want to say. So